Okay, now, we'd like to hear your stories, and I believe Leo Mahoney, who's graciously come to video from CTSB, which is kind enough to do
Yeah,
that.
we're gonna leave it right here, Amy.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So who would like to go first? Don't be shy. Okay, go ahead. Hi, Amy Judd.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, microphone?
My family bought the village inn.
We can't hear you.
Amy's family bought the
Can she
village.
take this mic?
Yes, because that doesn't.
This one does. Right, okay. My parents bought the village inn in '71. And I worked here as a chambermaid. I cleaned the Chester Arthur suite. And I was, we had a reciprocal agreement with the inn that we could use their pool.
Oh, yes, the
And our
pool.
guests could use their pool.
Ah.
Certainly my family was using the pool. And then much later on, I had the honor of playing with Annie Kimball in a one-woman show.
Oh, nice.
In a what?
Wonderful.
Doing her what?
It's hard.
What did you do with what did you do with Fanny Kimball?
Oh, well, it was a show that was written by my friend Bonnie Gable.
Gable.
And it was called Unyielding Spirit, because that's what her husband, her creepy husband, said she has an unyielding spirit, and she was like, yes, I do.
Should have figured it out before you married me.
Right. You should
All
have
right.
married slaves before you married her.
Thanks. We want to come up?
Yes.
Let's come around this way so you don't.
I don't trip.
Yeah, we don't need.
My mother was Irma William Curtis. Her father was Otis Curtis.
Oh
And
my.
her grandfather, etc. And
Maybe you can identify some of these pictures.
well, the problem is my mom's mother, Irma Gratz, married Otis Curtis here at the hotel. She met him years before on her honeymoon to a person, a duke who died in Germany. I don't know the whole story. But my mom, her mother, my grandmother, and Otis Curtis divorced when my mother was 2. And my mother was orphaned at the age of 6. When she was 7, Otis Phelps Curtis and his sister Laura came to see my mom and took her to the World's Fair. And that's the last time she ever saw him. When I got to college, she started researching and coming to Lenox. And the story I want to share, there's many, many stories that I know, but when my mom was 16, she met my father, who was Irish, and they fell in love and got married very young. And when she met my father and his family, his grandmother, Nellie Donovan, said to her, "You're not a Curtis, you couldn't possibly be a Curtis." I was a chambermaid at the Curtis Hotel. So that's a story I love because it's so quintessentially American. The chambermaid at the Curtis Hotel was my great-grandmother, and William D. Curtis was my great-grandfather. They had to have known each other. And I can tell, my mom came to Lenox, she met a woman by the name of Francine Derry. Then they became fast friends, and Francine was apparently the partner of Otis Phelps Curtis for many years, or a good friend, or in a romantic relationship, I'm not sure. But they became fast friends. She had many stories to tell my mom. So through the years, we learned much more about the Curtis family. I don't know if I have any relatives that are Curtises that are left alive. You are?
Yes.
Oh my God. And I would love to learn more about my family, and I'm so thankful for this today. And if anybody has any information they can share with me, I would love that. And I think I just found a relative, so that is really exciting.
That's wonderful. Wow.
And it closed in 1970. What was it? When did
I
the
think
Curtis?
in the early 70s, but.
I don't need a microphone because I have a big mouth.
Oh, okay.
Not big
Nevertheless,
enough.
I could tell you something about the Summer White House, which is
Right.
just across
Can you
the
speak
street.
Frank, could
We
you
need
please,
a mic.
could you please use the mic?
Come on up, Frank.
I really thought I had
I don't.
Thanks for the
Come
compliment.
around, this way. Go
Come around, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Bring around Rosie.
Is that Main Street?
I don't know if
there?
you can be held through the bedroom behind us.
Is that Main Street there?
I just wanted to add something.
Main
General
Street is there.
President Grant also
Right.
had dinner at the house, the Summer White House. That's the President Grant. Nevertheless, the Summer White House was built by John Schermerhorn. And his business in New York City became the South Street Seaport Museum. That's what it is. And if you go to that museum now, it's on the East River, you will see tall ships and short ships and all sorts of ships there at the South Street Seaport Museum. But I also wanted to point out that John Schermerhorn, who built the house in 1885, wasn't poor. And if anyone would like to see it, they're welcome to come in and look around. It's quite interesting. And as I said, Mr. Schermerhorn was not poor. So it's reflected that way. For some reason, and I don't know the reason, he preferred cherry doors. So all the doors on the first floor are cherry. I don't know why he did that, but he liked cherry, obviously. And that's what they are. I do have a number of photographs, old photographs, and I don't know if I should say this or not, but one of them is a spitting image of Bob Romeo here in town. And the person is dressed as a woman. It's a spinning image of Bob.
Oh dear.
I don't know whether you've seen the picture, but
Okay.
it's, I have about 8 photos from the time people were getting married in our place, and I have ladies in wedding gowns and things like that. And they're very interesting photos, and you should come by and see them. I also have letters from 5 presidents there at the Summer White House, and pictures of Bobby Kennedy, who paid us a visit here. He was a wonderful senator when we had him in Boston, and did a lot of good things for the people here, everybody here. He's a good man. Anyhow. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey.
Could you tell us when the Curtis Hotel stopped being?
Well, that's what
That's what I was going to ask too.
I keep asking.
So in 1967 was the first murmurings that maybe the Curtis should become housing for the elderly. But it was sold to a new owner who tried to make a go of it for several years. I don't know the exact date it stopped being a hotel. I know it was vacant for several years. Does anybody have any?
Okay. All right.
I do know that in the 1980s,
1980s.
when Berry Architects redesigned the building,
Mm-hmm.
I later worked for them in their hand gallery, and many people would come to the gallery, you know, they would be visiting, going to Tanglewood, and they would talk about having been there, usually with their grandparents or their parents, and they would talk about the ballroom and all the wonderful things that happened. And I wish that I had written things down or gotten their names, because so many people would come in. And the fun thing for me was being surrounded by these beautiful objects every day. You know, these talented people would bring their handmade objects into the gallery to be sold. And one day, John Stritch, who did the posters for Tanglewood, he also did sculptures and paintings and prints. One of his pieces sold, and he came into the gallery, and I told him, and he just grabbed me and danced me through the gallery.
goodness,
I was
danced
so
through the
afraid we
gallery.
were going to break
Oh,
something.
dear.
And I never thought that someone who excited about selling one of his works. It was just magical. But I loved spending time here, and it was Barry Architects who did the redesign. Sometime in the
Architects.
60s, excuse me, in the 80s.
In the 80s.
Yes.
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Here.
Upstairs.
Oh, hi, Tom.
It was, as I remember, it was definitely still operational in the 50s. And for people who weren't from town, in the parking lot was a swimming pool.
The swimming pool. I've never
Right
got
there,
the
and
swimming
they used to
pool.
let kids from town during the week, not the weekends. So we could go to swim in the pool for, I think it was like $1 or 50 cents. So you could use the pool itself. And that the restaurant and the steakhouse was still operational then. And then in the late 60s, early 70s, that's when they changed ownership. And they had it was kind of like a hot spot on evenings, Friday nights, weekends.
I heard about the Friday night
So
hotspots.
that was still going then. And then
Okay.
after that. The other story I wanted to tell was the mention of there wasn't any poor people in town. The story my father used to tell, this was back in, had to be early 30s, is there used to be a fence around the property where the pool was, and there was outside dining. And so when the waiters would walk by with their trays like this, the kids would be reaching over the fence and taking the trays off the plates. So there were some people who needed some extra help at that time.
MJ.
It was still serving food in the mid to late 70s because my husband and I tried to go there to support the place, and we were having dinner, and a tremendous leak came down from the ceiling.
Oh, dear.
There was sort of a bar area there, and the next thing we knew, there was a torrent of water coming down. But I'm curious about Pinnacle Farm. Do you
Yes.
actually have the boundaries of that? Do you?
I don't. All the maps that we have don't show that as its own plot of land like Stoneover and Bellefontaine.
Because Tony Bartoni told me that the property on the south side of Hubbard Street was where they were growing vegetables for the Curtis Hotel. And when I poked around there in the 70s and 80s, I found a midden with broken shards and teacups and lots of things. And I think that stuff was from the Curtis. I think there was sort of a little mini dump from the Curtis. And it's back there somewhere. It's still there.
Okay. Yes.
So, our former house is the Osterhout House, which is, well, for some people it's Duke Hardy's old house, but on the corner of Hubbard and 7 and 20. And that actually, the Osterhout, when I bought the house in 1997, we bought it from Dennis Carty. The title search is really cool because it goes back through the Osterhout and Vanderzee families, which are one of the African American families in town. Recently, I was speaking with someone about that house, because it's on the market for sale, by the way, because we moved over to Taconic Avenue, and they said there used to be the sisters, the Osterhout sisters had a bakery in the back of the house. And also, Tom Romeo's house, it was opposite the other side of the highway. You could see still some of the rusted farm equipment by Tom's side, by the brook, and there was some on my side up on the hill, because when the highway came through, that took out Vanderzee's his house. So my house was his grandmother's house, is what they said. And if you look at some famous Vanderzee photos, you can see my house. But someone told me that the sisters, and you can see from the title search that they all died, and it went through titles, and Dennis Carty bought it from the town of Lenox because it had gone to tax foreclosure. So at some point there were no more Osterhouts here, and I'm guessing it's around the time that the highway was taken, so they had land takings, family was gone, Vanderzee was in Harlem, so like there was nobody to take over the property. And that's when Dennis bought it, and he's told me that story. But it's interesting to think of it being a bakery in the back, because Pinnacle Farm was there. So I can imagine, and this part's my own storytelling, imagine these women baking delicious goods for the hotel, and I like to bake delicious goods. And my daughter's a photographer, so that's
That's right. I did make that assumption that when I mentioned James Vanderzee, you all knew him as the famous photographer of the Harlem Renaissance. So a significant figure.
Was he one of those lots of
I
information?
believe he was one of those 3 boys.
There's lots of information at the Historical Society about the
On
Vanderzees.
the Vanderzees. Tom?
Yeah, somebody had mentioned the swimming pool.
Yes.
That
the
used to be
swimming
in
pool.
the parking lot over there. And kind of by chance this morning, I met the woman whose family, that swimming pool was moved.
Oh, the swimming pool.
Yeah, Alan Sykes was the town supervisor. And I always thought it must have been fiberglass, but no, it was metal. And I talked to, kind of by chance, I talked to Kathy Sykes this morning.
Okay.
And she said they still use it.
Oh, wow, where is it now?
It's up in Al Sykes, West Mountain Road.
West Mountain Road.
Yeah, they still use
Sykes
it, she
Place.
said.
The famous pool. Anyone else with some stories?
Sort of superseded by what Mary Jane said. Date-wise, we're newcomers who came in 1970, and I do remember going to the porch and having drinks with people after Taylor performance. That would have been in the early 70s sometime.
Well, and there's still folks having drinks on the porch as well, it's not today, it's a little nippy, but in the summer. And they've invited me on my way home from work, but it's wonderful. Hi, Gail. Yes, MJ.
The little house that was in the back of the swimming pool, that was moved to Tucker Street.
That's right. In fact, Tom Fearing, we took a picture of it. So if you go down Tucker Street, in between Tucker Street and Housatonic Street, so where the old Caligary's was, there's a little house tucked in there. It's from Tucker Street. 12 Tucker Street.
Tucker and Orbit.
Whose house? Ed Mish. He just passed away. That used to be the gift shop. In fact, one of the things in the gift shop they displayed was the first piano in the town of Lenox, which looks like a little square table. And I know that because it came here afterwards. It's up in our dome room. Yeah, Suzanne.
I don't know anything about the remodeling of the Curtis Hotel, but I attended a wedding sometime in the early 70s, and the access to the pool was through the dining room. So if you were coming down from your room through the lobby, the way you got to the swimming pool was to walk through the center of the dining room.
In your bathing suit.
In your bathing suit while the wedding was going on.
Oh my. We have a woman in attendance, Ann Phillips, whose wedding reception was held at the Curtis. And she's too shy to tell you that, but I'm not, so. Sarah.
Yes, I've been living at the Curtis for 13 years.
For 13 years at the Curtis.
Yes, and once the weather turns nice and the tourists start coming, it amazes me because I'll be out on the porch or, in the front of the building, and people stop and say, "What is this now?" I used to come here when I was a kid.
Oh, sure.
And I can't tell you how many stories I hear.
I'm sure there's lots of stories that people could tell.
And they move, all away to different places, but they come back. And they tell me stories about when they were here and when they used to drink.
And I was going to say, how wild were those stories?
Yes,
I've heard some, but I think people are being too shy to tell them, but that's okay. Go ahead.
I have an old story, which is that when Charles Sedgwick was here as clerk of courts,
Yes.
he and his wife lived at the Hive, which was a little house that was actually probably close to where the swimming pool was. And
Yes.
they moved that house down.
We're moving houses again,
down
folks.
Kemble Street to the location where Spring Lawn is today. And the story is that in the process of putting it where Spring Lawn is, which is quite a steep hill, they almost dropped the house down the hill.
Yes, Nene Gilder tells a great
ran her
description of that.
school there for many years, and then the house was sold to the Alexandre family, who built Spring Lawn in 1910.
Yes. Nice. Yes.
Just a question, something I've been dying to know about is the hotel register. Like all the people who signed in through the years, does that exist?
So we haven't been able to locate them. There's rumors that they existed at one time. Stories in the newspaper about how valuable they are just because of the signatures of the people who signed them. But the register itself seems to have disappeared. We're still looking. They may be here at the library. It's one of my new jobs is to unearth some more artifacts, because I'm sure there are some to be unearthed. Anyone else? Right here.
Questions. I noticed in that list of people that you had when you were doing the maps that there were quite a few people along with the Osterhout that are also from Richmond and West Stockbridge. I was just wondering whether the family here were transplants, like whether they came in earlier in these other two towns. And
I don't know for sure. I think that's a good theory because, of course, Lenox and Richmond used to be the same town once upon a time, and I'm sure there was a lot of crisscrossing over the mountain. Same with Stockbridge and Lenox. I mean, the Curtis family is a great example. The Sedgwicks are another. So.
FHA in Pittsfield, there is some sort of a history with Lenox and Richmond combined in the same book.
Yeah, by Charles Palmer, The History of Lenox and Richmond. Not sure if those names are mentioned in that. I'd have to look. Okay.
Do you have any of the Howe brothers photographs?
Of the who brothers?
The Howe brothers from Ashfield, Mass.
No.
They came around in the early 1900s and did Berkshire County, Connecticut, and Massachusetts, Vermont.
Howe brothers.
Yeah, and I do know that there's some of Lenox that exist, but I've not seen them. I just was curious.
Mrs. Kendall is one. Trying to think of some of the other names, but if we did and we had sent them to Digital Commonwealth, that would be a search term. So that's something you could search in Digital Commonwealth.
Tell us about this Digital Commonwealth and how do we find the Lenox history stuff on it?
Digital Commonwealth is a program sponsored by the state of Massachusetts, housed at Boston Public Library. They have a state-of-the-art lab there where institutions like our library and the Historical Society can send images, objects down, and they can be scanned so that the images are saved so that folks at home can pull them up online.
How? Is there some other search?
There's a website and with the search and if you access the website, there's a search engine.
You mean there's a Digital Commonwealth website, or do you mean the Lenox Library?
There's a Digital Commonwealth website. The library has a link to it on our website, and I can help you navigate to that website. Okay. I thought I saw one more hand go up. Hi.
Since we're near the end, I guess I'll share my story. I already shared with Amy last week about very near the end of the Curtis Hotel's history that we're speaking of. When I was 17, which would have been 1973, myself and my good friend were hired to work at the hotel in a rather unique sort of job. They had started having bands every weekend on Friday and Saturday night, and we're drawing a very active, young, and rather reckless crowd that would leave the place looking covered with beer bottles and rather trashed at the end of the night. So anyway, the general manager hired me and my friend to come in and start at 1 o'clock in the morning and turn the hotel dining room and grand function room back into a hotel by 9 o'clock the next morning. So, we usually came and enjoyed the music and being part of the thing anyway at the show. And one particular night, 1973, the rock band Quarry was playing in the ballroom, and everybody was having a ball, dancing. Some of you may have even been there, I know. But anyway, everybody was having such a good time that they didn't want to stop. And people kept yelling, one more, and the band would play another song. So finally the manager of the place decided that we're going to need some help in closing this down. So they called across the street to the police department and asked the Lenox police to come over and tell everybody it was time to go home, which they tried to do in a sort of orderly fashion. But the band ignored them and started playing again. So that one of the police officers went over to the wall where the power was plugged in and unplugged the equipment. And that just released a storm of people started yelling and screaming, and a couple of people threw bottles and and the next thing you know, I'm a lifelong resident of Lenox, and I've only seen this happen once in my life. But it turned into like a full-scale uprising. People were going nuts, and they shoot us all out of the building, but people didn't want to go home, so they were mulling around outside and, you know, yelling and just creating a ruckus and whatever. So the Lenox police, and I don't know what, I guess they had a radio back in those days for technology, but they called into the state police for reinforcements. Within the matter of minutes, we're all out in the street outside the hotel, and just like clockwork, 2 cruisers come flying up from Walker Street direction with their lights going and sirens. 2 come flying down from Pittsfield, and 2 come up West Street from Stockbridge. So like almost within minutes, there's 6 state police cruisers. But the whole place surrounded with the lights going and horns going on. And it's like, all I could think was Alice's Restaurant. But a friend of mine who I'd been there with thought it was quite comical. Grabs a beer bottle and pretends it's a microphone and starts running around to people going, Sir, can you tell me what's going on? I thought the whole thing was hilarious, but by 5 minutes, everybody had been dissipated. But for those few rare moments, Lenox was not the sleepy little village. Quite animated.
Anne.
Long time ago. If anybody knows where the View is, up on the road to Richmond, go down West Street and up over. Yeah. Well, there's the View up there where you can look down the Shadowbrook.
The overlook.
Yeah.
Olivia's
Olivia's overlook.
House on the other side of the street.
House on the other side of the street?
Yeah, and I was in the street, near the overlook. And that's where we were born.
Who was born?
Andy, who was born?
Who was born there?